Hi guys, welcome to this video. In this video, you're going to be learning Python in 30 minutes. So this is a basic introduction to Python. It's just for you to have an understanding, to introduce you to what Python is and how to go about it. So without wasting any time, let's get straight into this video. So guys, the first thing you need to know when getting started with Python is the print function. So this is the first thing we're going to be talking about. Now this function just prints a simple text to the screen. So to use this, you're just going to say print open bracket, then with columns, then you're just going to say hello world. Now when we run this, to run this particular file, you can just come to the top right corner and click on this run button. So now you see it says hello world. Now that is the first thing we need to know when working with Python, just how to print a basic text to the screen. Now Python runs line by line. So now if I come on another line and I say print something like A, now you see that it's gonna print hello world before A, so it prints hello world before A. So that's how the programming language works. So with this print, you can use it to do whatever you want. You can print whatever you want to the screen or to your terminal console. So now the second thing we're going to be talking about is variables in Python. Now variables are basically I'll say like a place where you're going to store the particular data and then you can reference that data later. So variables are like in different types. They are strings, they are integers, they are boolean, and I'm going to explain this in a second. So to write a variable, all you just need to say is the variable name. Now let's say we want to have a variable named schools. School. So now this is a variable school, and then to give it a value, so we're going to say equals to, and we're going to put this parenthesis, and then all we just need to do is to say we can just select Oxford. Now this variable name, which is school, has a value of Oxford. Now we can print this. Now instead of printing hello world, I can print school. Now it's not going to print school for me, it's going to print Oxford. Now, and you can see that I didn't add any column right here or any quotes like I did. So if I add quotes, Python is going to see this as just print only this text. But if I don't add quotes, Python is gonna first of all go above that code and look for the variable named school, and then it's gonna print the value. So as you can see, it prints Oxford, not school. So that's how to use variables in Python. And then we can also have another variable type. So variables are in data types. So this is as you can see, is a string. So a string are just plain text. Now if we want to have a number, we name it integers. So we can just say something like age. And when you're writing a number or integers, you don't put this quotes, or you don't need to do this to write it. You can say 94. And then the same thing, we can also print it right here and just say age. So now when we print age and run this, you're gonna see that it prints 94. And that's how to do that. And then you can also print a normal text alongside with a variable. Now let me show you what I'm talking about. Now let's say you want to print the name of my school is. Now I'll say the name of my school is, and I'm going to use something we call concatenation. Now this concatenation is going to append this school variable to this text. So it's going to say the name of my school is, I'm going to use a plus sign, and I'm going to say school, which is this school variable. See here, the code already suggested it for me. Now when I run this, we come down here, you see it says the name of my school is Oxford. Now let me just close up this terminal. So that's how to print a normal text alongside with a variable. Now let me tell you another cool thing in Python. Now in Python, you can get a user input. Now what I mean is that you can ask a user, let's say for his name and his age, then you can now greet the user. Like you ask the user to input name, Then let's say the user's name is John, and then you can say, hey John, how are you doing? So let me show you how to do that. So let's just remove this and have a variable name of name. And now instead of just assigning a value ourselves, what we're just gonna do is to say input. So this input is gonna allow us to collect an input from a user. So I'm gonna put the quote and we'll tell the user enter your name. So we're telling the user what we want to collect. And then once a user enters his or her name, we can just print right here, good day, then the user's name, whatever the name is. Now let's run this again and see. So you see it says enter your name, and let's say John, and I click enter, it says good day John. So as you can see, we asked for a user's input, we stored it in a variable, and then we printed a plain text alongside with that variable. Now I hope you are making progress with what we're talking about in this video. So now that we have that off, next thing I want to talk about is comments in Python. So comment in Python is basically removing a particular line or block of code from your whole code. Now for example, let's say we have multiple lines of this code, as you can see, and let's just say each of these are different variable names like age, citizenship, nationality, or anything. And then we don't want this to function. Let's say we are testing something and we just want to remove this particular line of code. Now what we're going to do at the beginning of that line, we're just going to put an hashtag. So as you can see, that particular line is grayed out. So that means this line is no more in our code. So first of all, let me go back and remove this. So now you can see we have name. Let me print this again, and it asks, you can see it asks for my name. I put a name, it says good day Tom. Now if I comment this out by putting an hashtag, you can just put an hashtag, and I click on run, you can see now it doesn't ask for a name, and it even gives us an error. So it's saying name is not defined. We're going to talk more about errors later. So what this is saying is that there is nothing like name. So you can see right here, we're trying to access a variable which is named name, but we have commented it out, so it's no longer part of this our block of code. So that's what the comment is used for. So I hope you understand what we talked about in comment. So now let's talk more about numbers. So as you can see right here, we have a string, as I explained. So this is just a string. But now let's talk more about numbers. In Python, you can do some basic arithmetic operations like addition of numbers, subtraction of numbers, division, and even some advanced math stuff like finding the square root, involving pi, and all those kind of stuff. But let's talk about the basic ones. So now let's say I have a number and I say num1, and I have it as 7, and I have a number and I say num2, and I have it as 4. So this is number 1, number 2. I can just print num1 plus num2, and right here this is no longer concatenation. It's because we are adding two integers together, two numbers, so it's going to perform an arithmetic operation. If I run this right now, you're going to see it says 11. It adds these two integers together. If I do for subtraction, you're going to see that it says exactly the same thing, 3. Now it does that arithmetic operation. But note, let's say right here, instead of leaving it without the quote, and I add quotes like this, and then I click on run, see what it says? It says it gives us an error. So it says we can't add or do anything to this. So let's come here and put plus. Same thing, can't concatenate string and integer. So let's continue going. Let's add this now. So when I run this, you're gonna see it's gonna print 74. So now num1 plus num2 is 74. This is because Python now sees it as a letter. It sees it as a string. It doesn't see it as a number again, so it can't add these two numbers or subtract. So if you want to perform arithmetic operation, first of all, make sure that the numbers are in integers. But now let's say the numbers are not in integers again. Like they're in string right now, and let's say we are getting, just for instance, this is a bit advanced, but let's say we are getting some particular digits from a database, and those digits in the database are stored as a string, and then we want to convert them to an integer in our code. How do we do this? Now we can just do something like, we can rewrite this variable again. We can say num1 should be equals to int. I'm going to put int. So this int is going to convert whatever I put inside this bracket into an integer. So I'm converting num1 into an integer. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing for num2. Num2 should be int, like this. So this is the variable. This is still the same variable. I'm just updating the variable here. So I'm converting this int num1 right here to an integer. Now if I run this, we shouldn't be having 74 but 11. So that's how to easily convert it. But if you are getting kind of stuck here and you don't really understand what's going on here, then we can remove this, and right here you can just put int, open the bracket, close it right here, and when you run it, it's still okay. As you can see, it's printing 74. So if you want to do this, you have to do it for each of them. You convert them. So right here you see now that each of them are converted to integers, and now when we run this, you can see now that it is 11. So that's how to basically convert from string to integer. Now you can also convert from integer to string. Let's talk about that. Now let's say we have this as 4 again without the quotes, and we have this as 7. You know that, let's just remove this and this and this right here. So right here now, you know, when we print this, we should be having 11 because they are both integers. But let's say we want to convert them to string and we want them to concatenate with themselves. We want them to join. We don't want them to add. We can do exactly the same thing. So we can just say num1 should be equals to string. So str is going to convert it to a string. So when I say num1, and I can do exactly the same thing for num2, equals to str num2. So now these are converted to string. I click run. Now you see it's 74. So these are now strings. They are no more integers. Now the next thing I want us to talk about are data types in Python. Now what do I mean by data types? As you can see, I've been talking about variables for a while, and I just talked about strings and integers. But there are more to this than just strings and integers. So I want to talk about what we call lists. Now you can see that this string just has one value assigned to it, just only one. So we can change this. Let's say to assign a list, it's going to be a list of values. Now instead of having 7, so let me just clear this, and I can have a new variable named names. So from the variable name, you can see that I want to have a bunch of names in here. But I would like to do that. I can't do this and say John. I can't do Henry. No, this won't work. This is just going to be seen as one text or one particular name. If I want it to be a list, what I'm going to do is put my square brackets. Then I'm going to put my quotes, and then I'm going to put the first name right here. And after the quote, I put a comma. I put a quote again. Henry is the second name. I put a comma. I put a quote again. Tom is the third name. Then I can keep going for how long I want. But for now, let's just have these 3. So in these 3, you can see that we just have 3 values assigned to this list variable. As you can see, when I hover on this, it automatically detects it as a list. But how will I print this the way I've been printing the others? Very easy actually, just the same. I'm just gonna print names, and then when I run this, you can see it prints the 3 values which we have. But let's do something fun with it. Now this is a list. The reason why we're putting it in a list is so that we can access one each at a time, or update it, or do anything we want with it. Now if I come here and say list, let's say I want to get only this John. After names, I'm going to put a square bracket and put 0. Now if I run this, you see that that gives me John. Now why is that? The reason is because when I put names and a square bracket and 0 inside, this 0 is called an index number. Now each value in this list has an index number assigned to it. So in Python, numbers start counting from 0. So the index number of John is 0, Henry is 1, Tom is 2, like that till how long the list is. So now let's say I want to get the second value. Now we should know that the index number should be 1. And I can print this. So now I have Henry without this quote or anything. I just have this Henry. Now that is very good. Now we can have another variable. We can say name 3, and then we can assign it from one of these values. We can say name 3. Let's say we want Tom to be a new variable on his own. We can say name 3 equals to names 2. So you know this is 0, 1, 2. So now we know we're accessing Tom. So name 3 equals to names 2. So now let's say I print name 3 and I run this. If you come down here, you see now that we have Tom. So that is how to simply do that. But now let's say I want to do some concatenation. I want to add names, something like, I want to print it like this. Names 0. And I can just add again with names 1. So this is going to print name 0 and name 1 joins together. As you can see, it prints John, Henry without any space. It just print them joined together. So that's how to basically concatenate from a list. So now in Python, we also have something we call tuples. Tuples is very similar to list, but it's just that in tuples we can't edit or do anything to it after being assigned. So it's also a data type. Now to specify or to assign a tuple, the only difference with that and list is that we don't use a square bracket, but we use the normal parentheses. So right here I can come to close it, and then when I run it, I'm still going to have exactly the same result that I got there. That's just the basic, very basic difference between a list and a tuple. It's very simple. Now I want us to talk about booleans. Now booleans are true or false. Now let me make an instance of database again. Now we can have our website, for example, that we built with Python, and then once a user registers, we are storing a particular field which is checking if a user is a male or a female. So is the user a male, true or false? Is the user a female, true or false? So let me put that in action right here. So we can say is male. Now this is a variable asking if a user is male. We can answer true. So this means that a user is male. It's just a very simple and basic variable data type, but it comes in handy very well. Then we can say like is female. We can say false. So this is just how to write a simple boolean variable, true or false. Then if we just print is male, and you know now we should have true. So right here you can see we have true printed. Very easy, very simple, nothing too complex about the booleans. So now that we have that, the next thing I want us to do is to talk about if statement in Python. Now if statement is so popular that you can't do without it if you're coding with not only Python, any programming language. JavaScript, Golang, any programming language have if and else statement. Now these are called the conditional statement. It is used to get a particular condition and know which task to perform in whatever is going on. Now let me give an instance. We have a number string, so we say num and we give it as 20. Now let's say if this is how to write an if statement. If num, so num is this variable, is equals to, now I'm saying is equals to, you can see I don't use just one, I use two equals to sign. This is saying if it's equals to 20, then let's print num is 20. So as you can see, it's very easy. I just say if this variable is equals to 20, what do we want to do? So we put a colon, and then under it we must have these 4 spaces between it, 1 2 3 4. Then we do whatever we want to do. We can print num is 20. Now when we print this, we know that num is 20, so it should give us num is 20. But now let's say, what do we now want to do when num is not 20? That's when an else statement comes. So we have the if statement and we have the else statement. So this else statement just be like anything except for this if, then run this task. So to write an else statement, we say else. So if num is not equals to 20, we want to do something else. We can now print num is not 20. If we run this again, it's still going to print us num is 20. Why is that? Because num is equals to 20. But let's say num is 200 now. Let me just close this up. And I run this. You see it says num is not 20. So this is how we can easily get which task we want to perform in a specific condition. Now you can see right here we say is equals to. Let's just remove this else since we know what we're talking about. But we can say if num is not equals to 20. So if it's not equals to 20, that means if it's anything else except for 20. You can see now that this is 200, so it's except from 20. So we can say num is not equal to 20. So this is how to use the not equals to in Python. You can see it says num is not equals to 20. We can also do something more fun and say if num is less than 20, or if it's greater than 20, or if it's less than or equals to. Plenty of things we can do, you know. So we can say if num is greater than 20, then we can print num is greater than 20. So when I print it, you see it says num is greater than 20. But if it's less than 20, obviously num is greater than 20, so nothing is going to happen this time around. You can see it doesn't print nothing. That's because the code we said it should print does not happen right here, so it doesn't do nothing. So that's how to use that. We also have something we call the elif statement. So now we are saying if num is less than 20, print num is less than 20. But now we can also do something like elif. That means, so we are going to specify the next condition. Let's say if num is now greater than 20, then print num is greater than 20. So as you can see, while asking if num is less than 20, is printing that is less than 20. Then this elif statement gives it another condition under that same conditional block. So you can see after checking if it's less than 20, it also says elif check again if it's greater than 20. So we know it's greater than 20. Instead of printing this, we're gonna print this. So now let's run this. You see now it says it's greater than 20 because we know 200 is greater than 20. But we cannot put else. That means anything apart from that, then we can just say num. We can just write anything right there actually. So that is how to use the if statement or the conditional statement. Now let's talk about one more thing in Python. Let me close this up. And what we're going to be talking about is called function in Python. So what function does is that it is a particular code block which performs a given task. That's it. It's just a code block that does a task. Now we can write a Python function to, let's say, add two numbers together. Or we can have a Python function that is gonna greet a user. let's just do something. So let's have to write a function. We need to write the keyword named def. After writing that, then we're gonna say the name of that function. Let's say greet user. So this is the name of the function. Then we'll put the parentheses, we put the column after that, and we hit enter. So below this, what do we want this function to do? We just want it to tell the user, hey, welcome, or how you doing. So let's print hey Tim, welcome. So if I run this, we are going to see that nothing happens at all. Nothing happens. That is because this is a function. Before we can run this function, we have to call that function. So to call this function, we're just going to say greet user, and we'll put the parentheses. This easy. So now when we run this, it says hey Tim, welcome. So it looks for wherever we have this greet user function, and it does whatever is in there. So instead of having your code just lined up just like that, you can use this function to make your code more, apart from being neat, you can use it to make your code more, let me say, readable and more effective or productive. I don't know the word to use for this, but it's very important in Python. Just take that. And so we can also do something else. You can see once it's greeting a user, it's just greeting this user Tim. But no, we want a user to input his name, and then it's going to greet that user. So let's do that. So right here, first of all, let's have a name variable, and it should be input, which we talked about. And we want it to tell the user enter your name. And now we want to collect this name into this function. So for us to get whatever the user wrote and put it in this function, in this parentheses, we just need to come here and type name. So that is what we need to come here to type. So now that we have this name from here, we can just say a, and then we can close that and use the add and say name. So now let's try this out. Once we run this, it asks for the name. Okay, let's run. It asks for the name. We say John. It says one required post argument name. So we need to say name is equals to name. And then let's run this again. Team tick. Now it says a tick welcome. So what this is doing is that we have like a new variable now named name, and then we're giving the value of this name that is above here. Then what we're just doing is using concatenation to print it. That should be easy if you've been following up with this tutorial. Now that is basically all we need to talk about in Python. Now let me just do a quick recap of what we talked about. We talked about the variables, the strings, we talked about the integers, we talked about the boolean, the list, the tuples, and then we talked about simple and basic arithmetic operation with in Python, that means addition of two numbers. We talked about the if and else statement. We talked about the getting users input. We talked about the functions, calling the functions, and things like that. Now these are the basic things you just need to learn to get started with Python. Now obviously this tutorial can't be enough for you to learn Python very effectively. It's just for you to have a grasp or have a little knowledge of what Python is about. Now I have a 3 hours, almost 4 hours full tutorial on my channel where you can learn Python fully. So this video is just an introduction, and if you want to learn Python, you can go check that out. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Now you have a little bit of understanding of Python. So if you have any questions at all, you can just drop it down in the comment. I'll answer all questions. Now, having all this said, I guess we are through with this video. And if you watched to this extent, thank you so much for watching, because not everyone watched to the end. So having all this said, thank you so much for watching once again. Smash the like button, subscribe, Drop a comment if you have any question, and I'll see you in the next video.